There is a plant that reduces blood sugar by 35% after a single meal. It needs no prescription, no pharmacy, no water. One pad produces food and medicine for an entire year. In 2014, researchers in Mexico tested it against diabetes medication. The plant matched the drug, but the drug costs money. This plant grows free, in sand. And that made it dangerous. Not to your health, but to profit. Somewhere in San Antonio, Texas, a grandmother has been growing this plant in a clay pot behind her house for over 40 years. Every Sunday morning, she cuts 2 pads, burns the spines off with the stove flame, and grills them with onions and lime. She never bought diabetes medication. She never needed to. The laziest plant on earth turned out to be the smartest. This is the prickly pear cactus. The Aztecs called it Nopal. Scientists call it opuntia. For 12,000 years, it was medicine, food, and water in volcanic deserts. 3 roles, 1 plant, 0 effort. Then we decided to call it a weed. This is the story of how an empire's sacred foundation became a footnote in a USDA extermination guide. The Tehuacan Valley in central Mexico holds some of the oldest evidence of agriculture in the Americas. And buried in those layers of soil and stone, archaeologists found traces of nopal consumption going back 12,000 years. 12,000 years. By 7,000 years ago, the prickly pear stood beside maize and beans as a pillar of Mesoamerican civilization. Most people know the 3 sisters of American agriculture: corn, beans, and squash. But alongside those 3 sisters, there was a 4th: the cactus. In many Mexican families, grandmothers still say the same thing. The cactus was here before the corn. And when one civilization built the greatest city in the Western Hemisphere, they built it on this plant. The god of war, Huitzilopochtli, gave the wandering Mexica people a command: search for a sign, an eagle, perched on a nopal cactus, devouring a serpent. When you find it, build your city there. After decades of wandering, they found the sign on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. They built Tenochtitlan, which translates to the place of the sacred cactus. That city became the heart of the Aztec Empire. 5 to 15 million people, one of the largest civilizations on Earth. And here's what most people miss: that image. The eagle on the cactus eating the serpent is still on Mexico's flag today, 700 years later. The cactus remains a national symbol. The Aztecs used every part of this plant. They split pads open to heal burns. They drank the juice for liver health. They fermented the fruit into a drink called colonche. And when the rain stopped and the fields dried, the cactus kept them alive. Because it stores water inside those thick green pads. Because the cactus never fails. Every September 10th, Mexico celebrates National Nopal Day. If you've ever seen the Mexican flag, you've seen this plant. Most people never realize what the cactus on that flag actually represents. But the cactus held another secret, one that made Spain the richest empire on Earth. Living on the pads of the nopal are tiny insects called cochineal. 70,000 of these creatures produce just 1 pound of dye. But that dye was the most brilliant red the world had ever seen. Spain guarded the secret of cochineal production for 200 years. By the 1570s, they shipped 70 tons of dried cochineal a year from Mexico to Europe. It was their second largest export, after silver. This red colored the robes of Catholic cardinals, the uniforms of British redcoats, the paintings of Rembrandt and Vermeer. And here is what might surprise you. That red is still used today. Check the label on your lipstick, your candy, your yogurt. If you see E120 or the word carmine, that is cochineal extract from an insect that lives on a cactus. Next time you pick up something bright red in a store, check the ingredients. You might be consuming cactus products without knowing it. And then the 20th century happened. The United States Department of Agriculture classified the prickly pear as a rangeland weed. They didn't study it. They didn't test it. They printed guides on how to kill it. In Australia, it was worse. British settlers brought the prickly pear to Australia in the 1800s. They wanted living fences. What they got was an invasion. Without natural predators, the cactus exploded across the continent. By 1925, it had conquered 100,000 square miles, an area the size of England. They called it the Green Hell. The Australian government tried everything: dynamite, acid, burning, poisoning. Nothing worked. The cactus kept growing. Finally, in 1926, they released 3 billion eggs of a moth called Cactoblastis cactorum. The moth larvae burrowed into the pads and ate the cactus from the inside. Within 10 years, it was gone. They built a memorial hall in Queensland to honor the moth, not the plant it destroyed. Meanwhile, we replaced the cactus with crops that require dependency. Seeds you must buy every year. Chemicals you must spray every month. Water you must pump from aquifers that are running dry. And the consequences of that choice were already unfolding. The Tohono O'odham people lived in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona for thousands of years. Their traditional diet was built around the plants of that desert: nopal pads, mesquite beans, cholla buds, tepary beans, slow-burning, fiber-rich, perfectly adapted foods. Their diabetes rate was virtually zero. Then, in the 20th century, the United States government diverted the Gila River to feed industrial agriculture. The Tohono O'odham's water disappeared. Their farming collapsed overnight. The USDA sent commodity foods to replace what was lost: white flour, refined sugar, vegetable oil, canned meat. In one generation, the Tohono O'odham diabetes rate went from nearly 0 to 50%, the highest rate in the world. It was not genetics. It was not inevitable. It was the shift from a cactus that costs nothing to sugar that costs everything. Across the Southwest, the grandmothers who kept their cactus patches watched their neighbors fall sick one by one. They kept growing. They kept cooking the pads every Sunday. They kept the knowledge alive. The question was never whether this plant works. The science was already answering that. In 2014, researchers at the National Polytechnic Institute in Mexico City designed a controlled study. 14 patients with type 2 diabetes ate a high-carbohydrate breakfast. Half ate the meal plain. The other half added 300 grams of steamed nopal pads. The results were striking. The Nopal group experienced a 35% reduction in blood sugar after the meal. Glucose peaks dropped from 443 to 287 milligrams per deciliter. The plant's glycemic index measured at 32, which is lower than oatmeal, lower than brown rice, and dramatically lower than white bread at 75. The secret is the slime. When the mucilage enters your stomach, it expands. It coats the walls of your digestive tract, and it physically traps carbohydrates, slowing their conversion to sugar. But blood sugar is only the beginning. The same pectin fiber that slows glucose absorption also binds bile acids. which helps lower LDL cholesterol. The betalains in the fruit, the same compounds that make beets red, are powerful anti-inflammatory agents. For seniors dealing with joint pain, high blood pressure, or chronic digestive issues, this single plant addresses all three. And then there is how it grows. Most plants open their pores during the day to absorb carbon dioxide. But that means they lose water through evaporation, right when the sun is hottest. The Nopal does the opposite. It uses a process called CAM photosynthesis. It opens its pores only at night, stores CO2 as malic acid, and photosynthesizes during the day with its pores completely closed. The result? Wheat requires 500 kilograms of water to produce 1 kilogram of dry matter. The Nopal requires 50, 10 times more efficient. Works smarter, not harder. This plant figured that out 12,000 years before we did. Now here is what no one else is telling you: how to actually grow it. Get one pad from a neighbor, from a Mexican grocery store, or order one online. It costs almost nothing. Cut the pad from the plant. Set it in a dry, shaded spot for 1 week. Let the cut end callus over. Then stick it upright, about 2 inches deep, in sandy, well-draining soil. Water it once, and walk away. That's it. If you live in USDA zones 8 through 11, plant it outside and forget about it. It will survive summer heat above 120 degrees. It will survive drought. It will survive neglect. In zones 4 through 7, use a container, a 5 to 10 gallon pot with cactus mixed soil and drainage holes. Bring it inside before the first frost. If you have pets or grandchildren, choose spineless varieties. Burbank Spineless or Elysiana. No thorns, no glochids, no drama. Good news for pet owners. Nopal pads and fruit are non-toxic to dogs and cats. But regular varieties have tiny hair-like spines called glochids that can irritate paws and mouths. So spineless is the way to go. 0 water bill, 0 fertilizer, 0 effort. One established plant produces 20 to 40 pads per year. That is enough food and medicine for an entire family. 1 pad, 1 pot, 1 spring. That is the entire investment. And when those pads are ready, this is how the grandmothers prepare them. First, the spines. Hold the pad with tongs and pass it over an open flame. You will hear them pop and sizzle as the tiny glochids burn away. Slice the clean pad into thin strips. Toss them on a hot grill or skillet with sliced onions, a clove of garlic, and a generous squeeze of lime. They sizzle like green beans. The emerald color deepens as they cook. The taste is slightly tangy, like a green bean that grew up in the desert. Crisp, clean, a little sour. Perfect alongside scrambled eggs on a Sunday morning. The tuna fruit is something else entirely. Crack the skin open carefully. Inside, the flesh is watermelon pink. Sweet as candy, it makes juice, jam, or you can eat it straight from the skin with your hands. The grandmothers never measured anything. A handful of nopales, a squeeze of lime, a pinch of salt. Sunday morning, every week, for decades, for 5 centuries. We chased red gold and ignored green gold. We labeled the cactus primitive while eating ourselves into disease. But in San Antonio, in Southern California, in Sicily and Ethiopia, communities are growing prickly pear again. In Israel, they named themselves after it, Sabra. It means tough on the outside, sweet on the inside. Your grandmother's cactus is still growing. In some backyard, in some clay pot, in some crack in the sidewalk. It does not need your money. It does not need your water. It does not need your permission. It just needs to be remembered. The plant that fed empires does not need profit. It only needs to be planted. Food was never meant to be a product. It was meant to be a relationship. If you remember one thing from this video, one pad, one pot, one spring. This video is for educational and historical purposes only. The health information presented is based on published research and traditional knowledge. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your diet or medication. Never replace prescribed medication without medical guidance.